Hey guys, welcome back to another Versus episode. It's been a while since the last one because I was working on a whole bunch of other ideas, but with the recent success of Arcane and the subsequent release of Arcane Jinx and Caitlyn, I thought it would be a fun little topic to make a video comparing the two as they're pretty similar yet vastly different. Now when I first teased this back in late November, I got a lot of people saying why did I choose Caitlyn to battle Jinx and not Jhin? Mostly because lore. The three of them do share a very similar style of combat with their own nuances put into place, but Caitlyn and Jinx are tied together because Arcane, so sue me. Anyways, just like the episode on Garen and Darius, we're going to be comparing the two characters' abilities, playstyles, synergies, attributes and such before coming to a conclusion on which one was designed better or which one is stronger. Depending on when you watch this video, whether on the day it came out or a year later, one champion might be doing statistically better than the other. Higher win rate, higher pick rate, maybe they just got buffed or nerfed, what have you. So for the most part, I will be looking at them conceptually since those are all bound to change. Though if a certain build or strategy has been a part of their gameplay for an extended period of time, that will also be taken into consideration. Prior to Arcane, the story of Jinx vs Vi and Caitlyn was more of a narrative flavor than anything else, but even back in the day when they first came out, a lot could be said between them as they're always at odds with one another. Caitlyn and Vi trying with all effort to stop Jinx's terrorism, but to no avail obviously. In terms of gameplay though, there's something I noticed about Caitlyn and Jinx's abilities that I'm not sure was pure coincidence or done intentionally. Caitlyn was released much earlier than Jinx on January 4th, 2011, and in contrast to Ezreal, who is a skillshot-focused marksman, she fit the mold of a traditional AD carry, extremely high damage on basic attacks but squishy and required team support and protection to do her job. Back in the day, the template for a typical marksman was to have one non-basic attack damaging ability and two utility spells. For instance, Twitch's damaging tool was Contaminate, while Ambush and Venom Cask were his utility spells. Ashe's Volley was the damage, Hawkshot and Ranger's Focus utility. Misfortune's Double Up was damage, Strut and Make It Rain utility. Caitlyn's Piltover Peacemaker would serve as her main damaging tool, while her 90 caliber net and snap traps gave her much needed control and peel to hold the line in fights. She was for all intents and purposes a very tactical marksman, still is today. Jinx takes a more wild and aggressive approach, though she still remains loyal to the conventions of a marksman, being a little, weird in the head, or not a little, very weird in the head. She has a more twisted version of what a marksman should be. Over 2.5 years later, on October 10, 2013, she was released, and her kit specs a lot more points into damage. Zap and Flame Chompers provide her some decent coverage, but she can no doubt launch far more ordnance than her law-abiding rival. What's interesting about these two is that Caitlyn's abilities are far more precise, calculated, patient, while Jinx's kit is more wild, volatile, and destructive. The former's playstyle is about taking out one target at a time, fitting for someone who uses a sniper rifle. Her passive headshot does immeasurable damage but only to one person, and her three basic abilities and ultimate are either exclusively meant for one person or perform a lot better against one person. Comparatively, the latter has attacks that are designed to inflict as much damage as humanly possible to everything that moves, but in exchange, her uptime is less consistent, at least when compared to Caitlyn's. Super Mega Death Rocket can blow up the entire enemy team but can easily miss or do nothing if the targets aren't low health. Caitlyn's Ace in the Hole can only strike one person, but it cannot be dodged or sidestepped, only blocked. Just a little something for you to consider as you continue through the rest of the video. Since it's been a while, let me recap you on what the different metrics are for this series. First is DPS or damage per second, a champion's ability to output consistent damage over a period of time. Second is burst, how much a champion can dish out in a very small time frame, also known as front-loaded damage. Third is mobility, which takes into account a champion's tempo as well. Tempo being their natural speed as they travel around the map, and mobility being dashes, blinks, or accelerated speed. Fourth is defense, how good their survivability is, their resistance to burst, do they have any sustain in their kit, and so on. Fifth is solo, how good a champion is on their own without any backup from teammates, and more importantly, how well they fare against one target. Sixth is teamfight, their performance in 4v4s or full-on 5v5. Seventh is synergy, how does the champion perform better with the right team composition? And finally, eighth is consistency, can you trust in this champion to do what needs to be done no matter what the situation or circumstances are? At the end, I also want to talk about their lore and design for a bit, but I already kind of did at the beginning, so we'll see what happens. All good? Perfect, let's get started. Now, trying to figure out which one was better in DPS was actually kind of tough because the way they exert their pressure is vastly different yet equal at the same time. Caitlyn may not have the most AoE damage, but she's hyper consistent. There's never a point in a team fight where she's not a threat, and with her headshots, she's easily doing over 1,000 damage per auto attack in the late game. Jinx has a metric ton of gunpowder in that rocket launcher of hers. Pair that up with Runaan's Hurricane, give her like 3 seconds of free time, and everyone's gonna die. But there are too many elements within her kit that don't allow her to output that kind of damage at the same level. The bonus attack speed from her minigun falls off with each attack after switching to rockets, and the increased attack speed on her passive only applies if she scores an initial takedown. However, while Jinx can swing really far in one direction or the other, the median average matches Caitlyn's more or less, so I would have to say this is a tie. The two both have very respectable DPS and high enough uptime to where there's no real point where you can ignore them without paying the price. Burst damage will also be a tie. Both have extremely high bursts in the right circumstances, but for different reasons. In the most ideal scenario, Jinx stands uncontested for the best damage output out of any marksman period. Not just Caitlyn, but Aphelios, Twitch, Vayne, Kindred, and all the other late game hypercarries. All she needs is one activation of her passive to sweep the floor with the enemy team. That being said, Caitlyn is no slouch in the burst department either. You ever took a triple headshot to the face? Passive headshot plus Yordle snap trap headshot plus 90 caliber net headshot, I'd be surprised if you can withstand 4,000 damage in 3 auto attacks. Be that as it may, it's only on one person, but if that one person isn't Rammus, they're ultra dead. Again, it's tough because how they apply their burst damage is through different means, but both of them are just as good. In a contest of damage, I doubt anyone would complain about Caitlyn or Jinx, and for that reason, we're gonna have another tie. That's as far as it goes though. In the mobility department, I'm gonna give this one to Jinx. At base, she doesn't have any mobility to speak of and is one of the most vulnerable marksmen to assassins and divers given that her only self-peel tool takes a full second to arm, more than enough time for her to get one-shotted. 2 words though, get excited. 175% speed boost decaying over 6 seconds makes her, albeit temporarily, as fast as a Rammus in Powerball. Giving an ADC that much tempo under any circumstances is extremely terrifying considering their greatest weakness is how easy they are to beat down once you get your hands on them. Caitlyn does have her 90 caliber net which gives her a fast reposition tool, but it can't hold a candle to Jinx's passive, even if it's available on demand. Then again, Jinx takes Kraken Slayer most of the time while Caitlyn is exclusively Gale Force, further increasing the latter's mobility. Even then, I would still say she falls behind Jinx in overall repositioning capability. Make no mistake, both are trash tier when it comes to mobility in the first place, but between the two I think Jinx edges out a little bit better. Defense is also a metric that all marksmen kind of unanimously suck at. That said, Caitlyn will be winning this one by a margin. Jinx may have the advantage of running around a lot faster, but defense is a champion's ability to stave off pressure and stay on the field for as long as possible, and Caitlyn is better at both. Her higher base range makes it so she can play the spacing game against shorter range marksmen, something Jinx does have the option to do, but not without cost. Also, 90 caliber net is an instant reposition tool, meaning it can be used to sidestep a critical attack such as an Ash Arrow or Thresh Hook. Furthermore, Caitlyn can block off an entire pathway with a line of traps, making her one of the few marksmen in the game who has zone control. Jinx on the other hand has only flame choppers to her name. They recently got buffed to where they can interrupt dashes, but they cover such a small area and only for a short duration that it's not as easy to use on divers and assassins who close the distance on you very quickly. Defense goes to Caitlyn, but again at the end of the day they're both super squishy targets, neither one can do anything against a Katarina or Irelia. As for which one performs better when alone, I think that goes to Caitlyn too, purely by virtue of her being more geared towards single target damage. Remember, if you step on a trap and then get hit by a 90 caliber net afterwards, you're taking minimum 1000 damage per auto attack right to the face. Do not underestimate her burst damage against a squishy target. I've watched enough FSN Saber videos to know. Now, depending on the matchup, Jinx might beat out Caitlyn because lethal tempo with minigun is quite a force to be reckoned with, but if it wasn't obvious, AD carries should rarely be alone in the first place unless your name is Vayne Top, but screw her. Now, despite neither struggling very much in teamfights, Jinx absolutely dominates the 5v5 zone. Her massive attack range plus Runon's Hurricane shooting at triple rockets that all do splash damage means she will effortlessly outpace any other marksman in the game by a wide margin. Jinx is the teamfight AD carry. Is she able to do it all by herself? No, but in teamfights it's your team versus theirs, so we're factoring in team assistance, and no matter how good Caitlyn is, she just can't keep up with Jinx, not anymore. A while ago, she also used to be able to go Runon's Hurricane and get headshot stacks 3 times as fast, which did put her in contention for the best teamfight marksman. With that gone though, no one comes close to Jinx. Synergy-wise, I think it would make sense to give them both a tie. Marksmen require assistance from their teammates to do much of anything in the game, so naturally they have a tendency to be cohesive with supports or other champions. Anyone who has utility works well with extra setup. For example, I'm sure everyone knows about Caitlyn and Morgana. Morgana lands a dark binding on someone, they get rooted for 3 seconds, during which Caitlyn can place a trap under them to root them for another 1.5. Free headshot too. Jinx's Super Mega Death Rocket is at its strongest when striking multiple enemies. If she has someone on her team such as Orianna or Yone who has an ability that forces several members of the opposing team into a tight spot, they're all getting exploded. Caitlyn also has the distinct privilege of being a massive you to anyone with Zhonya's Hourglass or Guardian Angel. While the animation is completing, you just slide a snap trap right under them and they get rooted instantly. Both of them benefit a lot from proper team compositions, it's just once again different aspects for each. For the last parameter being consistency, that goes to Caitlyn as well. True to her nature, she's very consistent. If you have strong fundamentals as an ADC player, you will easily achieve results on her. So even though Jinx currently has a higher win rate than Cait, conceptually the latter is more reliable, as Jinx is only strong right now due to the string of buffs she's gotten over the past few years. One other thing, much like how their personalities are complete opposites, so are the way they approach the game. Caitlyn performs better when players and teams become more organized and cooperative, while Jinx gets better as teams and players become more disorganized. Caitlyn has a strong neutral game advantage and disadvantage. She can adapt to different stages of the game and different scenarios beyond the scope of fighting. She's one of the best marksmen when it comes to sieging. Her traps can be used for zone control, she can easily snipe a low health target with her ultimate, stuff like that. Caitlyn is just a very tactical marksman. Jinx, on the other hand, is just damage. Lots and lots of damage. To her credit, nowadays it feels like all you need is just damage, what with everyone running around blowing each other up. But she can crash and burn very easily. She's heavily dependent on her passive to waste everybody, so if she doesn't get that perfect team fight, it's gonna feel very unsatisfying to play her. Okay, so here's how the score looks. DPS is a tie, burst is a tie, mobility is Jinx, defense is Caitlyn, solo is Caitlyn, teamfight is Jinx, synergy is a tie, and consistency is Caitlyn. That means Caitlyn is in the lead. Does that mean she's objectively better than Jinx? Absolutely not. As a champion, she's more stable, yes, but Jinx has a higher potential for impact if you find a way to keep her under control. As the Sheriff of Piltover, Caitlyn is a very honest person. Not that she follows the rules blindly like a goody two-shoes, but she does have a strong moral compass and a determined sense of justice, as we've seen in Arcane. However, that means she's only willing to go so far. Her abilities reflect this. They're very powerful in their own right, but there's only so much they can do. Caitlyn doesn't swing too far in one direction or the other. If that's your cup of tea, then you'll enjoy playing her a lot. On the other hand, Jinx is unpredictable, unstable, and difficult to control, but it also means she isn't afraid of the consequences of her actions, or she straight up doesn't care about them. If weaponized correctly, she can far exceed Caitlyn in just about every field. She has the potential to do a lot more damage, the potential to move around a lot faster, the potential to tear someone apart even in 1v1s, but the way her kit is designed makes that extremely hard to pull off. All the same, the possibility is there, and that's what I think is brilliant about these two, both within League of Legends and within Arcane. Caitlyn represents the stability and security you get for staying within your lane, but it can also be seen as a metaphorical ball and chain. You're stuck to protocols, rules, restrictions. She can do insane damage with headshots, but only to one target. Piltover Peacemaker can expand to acquire more coverage, but it does reduce damage in return. Ace in the Hole cannot miss, but it can be blocked. Everything about Caitlyn has rules to it. Jinx represents the incredible reward you get for casting aside all your constraints, but it can also be seen as a gamble, for you have nothing to fall back on. It's easy for her to be completely overwhelmed by enemy pressure. Prior to Lethal Tempo, she was the only ADC in the game who could break the attack speed cap. One might say that's to accentuate her snowballing nature, but I think it was done so to determine that Jinx is so crazy she can even break the limits of the video game itself. Ultimately, you have two champions that are very similar to each other in a lot of ways, yet so different. Neither are better or worse than the other, it simply comes down to each player's interpretation of their abilities, playstyle, and theme. No matter what the meta is, Caitlyn and Jinx will always be popular AD carries because they serve as foils to each other, and I think that's what Arcane proved even more. Anyways, that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to hit that like button, comment, and subscribe for more content like this. Consider checking out my second channel, Vars, too, if by chance you play Genshin Impact. I do a lot of similar discussions there as well. Other than that, be sure to follow me on Twitter, join my Discord server, and check out my previous two Versus episodes if you haven't already. But until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.